Hello, in this video, I'm going to unpack the first of the two standards I chose for this activity. Both of the standards I chose are from WIDA, and I chose WIDA standards because they're developed specifically for English language learners. And in my current teaching job, I work with English language learners in grades 1, 2, and 3. This specific standard that I chose, the first one, is related to the WIDA Standard 2, the Language of Language Arts, and it's a grades 1 to 2 standard at level 3, which is developing, and it's the level of my current grade 2 class, and this is from the Summative Framework for Writing. The standard is compare, contrast two characters, settings, or events in illustrated folk tales using graphic organizers. So the first thing I'm going to look at in this standard is the nouns. What is the content? The first nouns I see are two characters, settings, or events. So two characters, settings, or events. And the skill, what the students are going to do with this content is compare, contrast. Okay, so they're going to compare, contrast two characters, settings, or events. But I also see another verb, and it's here, using. So this is specifying how they're going to compare, contrast. And they're going to be using graphic organizers. There's also a context, and the context here is in illustrated folktales. So this standard actually gives three options for how the students can meet the standard. The first option is to compare or contrast two characters in illustrated folktales using graphic organizers. The second possibility is that they will compare or contrast two settings in illustrated folktales using graphic organizers, or compare and contrast two events in illustrated folktales using graphic organizers. So I came up with a couple of big ideas, and these big ideas aren't necessarily present in the standard itself, but these are the big ideas that I want my students to gain from doing the learning activities and going through the unit that I'm going to plan around this standard. So the big ideas are: 1, folktales are often told and retold in many ways across different times and cultures. And for this unit, I'm going to have the students read two versions of actually a couple of different folktales. And these are folktales that they'll already be familiar with from their own language and culture. And we're going to read a couple of different versions in English. So they can compare the version that they grew up with and these other versions, which will also both be different. And the other big idea is that stories can vary greatly in their details while maintaining a basic structure and message. The skills the students are going to need to meet this standard include being able to understand and use language for making comparisons, being able to understand and use language for describing character settings and events, being able to understand and identify story elements, and being able to understand and use Venn diagrams, which are the most appropriate kind of graphic organizer to use for a compare and contrast activity.